Jennifer Steffens, she's the CEO, and she spearheads all aspects of IOActive's global business operation and drives the company's strategic vision. Jennifer brings a wealth of industry and business experience to the company, having been an early member of several successful startups. Early in her career, Jennifer was director at Sourcefire, where she helped build and grow its run rate from 250,000 to over 35 million in just 4 years. You should come talk to me later.
Hey, you were with me.
No. She helped commercialize the Snort open source intrusion detection and prevention technology, built several service offerings around research initiatives. Prior to joining IOActive, Jennifer came to Seattle to help a startup, GraniteEdge, reinvent itself. While there, she led initiatives to restructure the company and developed a product strategy that ultimately secured 2 additional rounds of funding. With over 10 years of industry experience, Jennifer has held senior management positions at Ubizen, NFR Security, and StillSecure. So Jennifer is a well-respected media source, appears in Info Security Magazine, SC Magazine, Good Morning America, BBC, Reuters, The Guardian, and CBS News. She's been invited to give keynotes at various conferences, and she's a member of the EWF, ISA, and OWASP. And I am very, very pleased to have my friend Jennifer speak here. She was actually in London only a day or so before. I begged her to come speak. She flew in. She's had a little bit of a rough trip at the Crown Plaza. Somehow, I don't know if it was Skylar or someone broke into her room through the locks.
During the lockpicking talk.
Yeah, during the lock. So it's been a little bit of a rough thing, so I'm honored to have you here. Thank you very much, and welcome. We can give her a round of applause.
All right, can you guys hear me? All right, thank you. Good morning. Like Jake said, he literally hunted me down to come speak here today. He had to stalk me, I'm pretty sure, on Twitter, Facebook, text, IM, email, you name it. But when someone that I've admired for years asked me to come share my story with you guys, how could a girl resist? So that's what I'm here to do today. I want to share a little bit of my story and why after all of these years in the security industry, I am still like a kid in a candy store when I think about all the ways that we have to make the world a better place, a safer place, a more secure place. I know, kind of sounds like Cinderella dreams, but I'm a snarky girl from New York, so it's kind of nice to have good dreams sometimes. So for those I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, like Jake said, I'm Jennifer Steffens. My friends call me Sunshine because it's actually my middle name for those who always ask. My team calls me Captain, and for the last 7 years, I have been lucky enough to be the CEO of IOActive, which is a global security research firm that brings together some, definitely not all, but some of the brightest minds in the industry to tackle the world's toughest security challenges. So this is a cartoon inspired by the hacker strip guys. According to them, I am a chain-smoking, business suit-wearing mastermind of mission control overseeing legions of hackers who are poised to save the world one hack at a time. I don't think they've actually met me because I don't smoke. I prefer flip-flops to business suits, and it's my legions of hackers that are definitely inspiring me on how we're going to go save the world. So I wasn't always in security. I kind of tripped and fell into the industry a few years ago. I grew up a hardcore sports fan, going to Yankee games with my dad and playing soccer and lacrosse with my friends. And so after studying psychology in school, not too far from here, I got my start in sports marketing. It was a lot of fun. I loved all the team dynamics and dissecting what made the fans tick and how to get them out to the games. And so my first entry point into security was actually a campaign that we launched with the New York Yankees to convince fans that it was actually safe to bring their kids to Yankee Stadium. It was like a little girl's dream come true. But I was young and I was curious. I wanted to see what else was out there, and I was definitely inspired by this big, shiny tech bubble that was luring me in, and startups were popping up all around me, and I wanted to be part of the intensity. So I dove in head first, and my head was literally spinning in the early days. I was like the lone marketing person surrounded by developers and researchers who all spoke a completely different language than me. But I was hooked. I was lucky enough in the early days to be taken under the wings of folks like Marty Resch, Marcus Ranum, and their legions of researchers, some of whom are actually in the audience today, so hi guys, thank you. They all took me under their wing and taught me the technology. It was a really crazy time because one minute I'd be pitching an investor and the next minute I was lured into encode and writing Snort rules, and it was fun but not something I want to go back to, but I have been hooked on the security industry ever since. So over the years, I have had a chance to travel the world, attend conferences, visit hacker spaces, and one of the things I love to do is ask people how they got started in hacking in the first place. I'm still waiting for somebody to tell me sports marketing, but what I actually hear time and time again is the movies. And why not, right? The movies are cool. The Net, the Manhattan Project, the Matrix. I mean, who wouldn't want to see Trinity join me on stage? She is like the most badass woman in InfoSec. But somewhere along the way, the movies, while still really cool, aren't as cool as the real life hacks that are happening today. Now trust me, movies are cool. There's always good guys and bad guys. The hackers fight crime and governments. They steal corporate secrets. They live in alternate universes. But today, what real life hackers are doing are actually inspiring the movie plots of tomorrow. We have guys hacking satellite communications, ATM, cars, cities, you name it, right? So what I want to do today is share a few of the stories of the guys I've worked with who are hacking things like that. So it's great that real life is like the movies, but we also need to remember that real life isn't a movie. Not everything wraps up in 2 hours with a pretty little bow around it, right? Real research is hard, it's frustrating, it's full of failure, and today it's actually full of risk, right? We're seeing a trend of hackers today that are taking on a type of cyber vigilantism that's actually threatening the entire world of research, right? There's a fine line between good and evil, and when that line blurs, it threatens the livelihood of all the researchers we know. And as technology is evolving to blur the lines between security and safety, it's actually threatening the lives of the people we know and love, okay? But don't fear, because in my Cinderella utopian dreams kind of way, there is definitely a path forward for the bright minds of today with big hearts who want to keep making the world a safer place and do it in a responsible, safe way. So before we sit around the campfire telling stories, why is it important to save research? Why does it scare me when I hear that research is going to be coming under different laws and different regulations and researchers threaten jail time? Well, innovation is awesome, right? While I seriously have no idea why my iPhone needs to be able to turn on my oven, the Internet of Things is saving lives. It's extending our lives. It's giving sight to the blind. It's connecting families, and it's giving us a whole world of things we haven't even dreamed of yet. But much like the software industry of the 90s, these new markets that are embracing these new connected technologies have no idea what security is. They have no idea what the risks are, and they have no appreciation for what researchers are trying to do, right? We have to be better, we have to help them, and we have to learn to communicate in their language so they can understand the value we bring to the table. It's our job to help them, not fight them. Okay, so with all of that, we can't forget that security is a game. It scares me that as the innovation is happening at an ever faster pace, people are starting to say that security can't catch up. We can't keep up, the game is over, we should just throw up our hands and say it's just gonna stay insecure. Why would we even wanna catch up? I think it's our job to leapfrog all that innovation and come up with new, different ways to secure things. Security is a game, but it's definitely not a game with winners and losers. It's an ever-evolving game of give and take where it's our job to secure the most critical assets the best way we know how, right? That's actually the heart of what true researchers do. Now, hopefully most of you have seen War Games. If you haven't, email me, I'll send you a copy. It's a true classic, and back in the 80s, it inspired legions of teenagers to hack their computers. And as fate would have it, the girlfriend in the movie, the one played by Ali Sheedy, who encourages Matthew Broderick to hack things, was named Jennifer. So I'm pretty sure that my destiny was decided even back then. But now, don't worry, it's not a spoiler alert, but at the end of the movie, there's this great scene where the nuclear control computer is playing tic-tac-toe, right? Over time, it realizes nobody can win this game. It's a no-win game, and instead of giving up, he brilliantly suggests they should play chess instead. That's really what research is all about, right? When you think you're in a no-win game, you have to change up your perspective, create a new reality, change a new game, and create something completely different. Otherwise, you're just playing tic-tac-toe. All right, story time. So what are some of the things I've learned from my pirates? We call everybody at IOActive a pirate, so these are kind of my pirate tales of things we've learned over the years. Now, as if inspired by the movie War Games, Mudge has been changing the game for researchers for years. For those of you that don't know Mudge, he's probably best known for his work with Loft Heavy Industries and is an icon in helping security researchers time and time again. When he launched the DARPA Cyber Fast Track program, he cut through all the bureaucratic red tape and made it possible for researchers to get funding and have a safe way to tackle the big challenges of tomorrow. One of the projects that was funded by Mudge was Chris Valasek and Charlie Miller's car hacking. So one of the things I love about these guys is they are two of the hardest working people in the industry, at least that I know. They both held full-time jobs while they were researching cars initially, having no idea what they were going to come up with. They couldn't bank on this being their career. So they worked nights and weekends, seriously, like a little married couple, talking every day, sharing information, and trying to hack the cars. And they definitely did, right? These guys hacked the cars, they got on stage at DEF CON, and they showed how they can control it with one of those really old school Nintendo remotes, right? It was fun stuff. The security industry was inspired. They were awed. Everybody clapped. Yay, great stuff. But for them, that was really just the tip of the iceberg. They were just getting started. After that, they went on to release a series of tools and resources that made it possible for legions of hackers around the world to get involved. Not everybody has Mudge or an employer buying them cars every year. And with these tools, you guys can all get involved in hacking cars without having to have a live car. But they also knew that it was important to be able to demonstrate what they had done to a wider audience. It's all great when we can talk to each other and share what we do, but we all speak the same language. We understand it, right? The rest of the world around us tends to not know what we're talking about half the time. So they knew they wanted to show visually how they could hack a car. So they teamed up with Andy Greenberg, and they got behind the wheel of a car, and they forced his car off the road, up on the curb, into the bushes, hearing him curse. It was quite the ordeal, and it was a lot of fun. But the key was they had his permission, right? Guys, it's really important. You can break a lot of rules, you can do awesome stuff, but if you can't do it without breaking the law, if you can't do it without putting other people's lives at risk, and if you can't communicate what you've done, you're gonna have a really hard time affecting change. And for Chris and Charlie, it was definitely those videos that made all the difference. They're all available online. I urge you to go look at them. A lot of fun, but they were fun and educational, but more importantly, they caught the eye of mainstream media like Carson Daly. Oops, sorry. Now, I'm pretty sure that Chris's highlight of his life was being photobombed by Carson Daly after they filmed their Today Show segment. But for me, what was really cool about it was they had reached the consumer audience, right? When Carson Daly is talking about cars not being safe, it makes parents going into the car dealerships asking about security features for their kid's car, right? Consumer Reports today is using security as a metric for how they rank the cars, right? That's how you push the needle forward in the industry. You've got to reach a wider audience. You've got to hit the people who care. You've got to hit the people who hit the bottom line of the manufacturers and the people making decisions, because it impacts their revenue. All right, Barnaby Jack, near and dear to my heart. So many amazing stories, but I'm going to share two of them that I think are relevant to what we're talking about today. Now, Barnes was undeniably one of the top 10% of the world's most brilliant hackers, right? He was always looking at new things and trying to come up with creative ways to break them. And back before anyone was talking about ATM security, he knew he wanted to break these things. So he did what any of us would do, right? Roll on up into a bar and start hacking away at one. No, he actually went on eBay, bought a few, had them delivered to his apartment, and told his girlfriend that it was because he didn't want to pay ATM fees anymore, right? We would all do that. Now, the results were legendary. Barnaby is legendary, right? He jackpotted the ATM, he made money spit out on stage in Vegas, and he made money spit out on CNN, right? The world was listening. But what a lot of people don't know about Barnaby is he actually really cared about the security of the devices. The flashy black hat talk wasn't the end goal for him. He had literally spent months behind the scenes working with the vendors, making sure they were ready for his talk, and they were all in the front row of his talk and by his side during the press briefing afterwards. And I think it's all best summed up by Henry Schwartz, who actually works at Triton, one of the ATMs that was on stage with Barnaby, and Henry was sitting right next to me during the talk. And afterwards, he sort of chronicled his experience working with Barnaby, right? And he said what mattered most to him was that Barnaby had reached out to Triton before publishing. And trust me, when he did, they did not want to listen. They were terrified. He has a whole blog. They called him a swashbuckler. Didn't even know we call IOActive people pirates, but I thought that was kind of cool. And Henry actually inspired the title of the talk, Jackpotting ATMs, because he thought that that's what Barnaby was doing. But Barnaby flew out, met with them, talked about all the technical details, walked them through everything, and was available for them for any questions that they had. And then when they asked him to delay his talk, he agreed. It was important to him that since they were making progress, he was going to wait until more ATMs were patched before going live. And then when he did go live, he didn't disclose a how to attack ATMs. He talked about the vulnerabilities, he talked about the significance, and he talked about the impact. He told the world what was wrong without telling them how to recreate what he had done. And so Henry in his blog states it best when he said, Barnaby and I started as adversaries and ended as friends, right? Researchers have a chance to do this, but you've got to be patient, you got to talk with people. Don't be scared when they're scared of you day one, right? We can turn these folks around. Now, while Barnaby and I were never adversaries, we were definitely friends long before he became a pirate the first time, right? So as friends, he knew about my dad. It's my dad. He knew about my dad's battle with heart disease and implantable medical devices. 3 product recalls had forced my dad to undergo surgery 3 separate times to have these devices replaced, right? Barnaby saw this and realized, you know, rolling out patches to these new connected devices is not as simple as a software upgrade, right? These things really impacted real people. It was scary. Going under the knife is scary for all of us, but when you have a bad heart, it's a pretty significant undertaking. So as he ventured out to start his research in medical device, he asked if he could meet my dad. So we hopped on a plane, flew out to New York, and had lunch with Papa Steff. And we basically sat there for 5 or 6 hours, hilariously laughing. If you've met Barnaby, he's quite the jokester. Where he dug in with my dad on all aspects of what it was like to be an end user of medical devices. Could you feel the device? Did it hurt? What's the surgery like? What's the recovery like? What features are important to you? Do you even know why it's connected? Do you even know what it's connected to? He asked everything. He wanted to know everything there was about what it was like to have these medical devices so he could make them safer, right? Now, all of the fame and fortune, being on CNN, being in Forbes magazine was secondary. Barnaby wanted his research to impact real people, and it did, right? This is an episode of Homeland. His research was featured in an episode of Homeland where they demonstrated that hacking a medical device could actually cause an assassination of a leader. A very minor stretch in the technical terms of what could really happen easily, but once again, that message hit the general population and people were talking about it, right? Today, medical device manufacturers are undergoing security testing. The FDA is talking about security testing, right? Regulations are rolling out and people are taking notice. We still have a long, long way to go to make these devices safer, but people are paying attention, change is happening, and luckily for me, Barnaby didn't have to practice any live hacks on Papa Steff. Okay. At IOActive, we definitely work with a lot of the mobile device manufacturers. We have some of the cool new gadgets and tablets and things in our lab that the guys get to tear apart, see what's wrong with them, cool stuff. But for some folks, mobile's mobile. And why would I care about hacking text communications when I can hack satellite systems, right? So this picture is actually the view when I got to escape down to the Caribbean for a few weeks and float where the real pirates float. And I knew that Ruben Santamarta was working on satellite communication hacking, but I didn't know exactly when it was coming. So as I'm floating along, I get the preliminary report from him. And I start reading it, and it was terrifying, right? As I'm reading it, I look up and I see that the same device he's managed to hack is the device I have on board the Melanto to keep me connected to the mothership while we're floating around sea, right? Now I was paying attention, like possibly hacking my holiday. This was scary stuff. And the things he found were frightening. It was undocumented protocols, hard-coded passwords, backdoors, you name it. He could hack every system he got his hands on, right? This was scary stuff. I actually at one point looked up and said, Ruben, can you hear me? I was totally convinced he'd hacked the boat. All right, so as I'm floating in paradise, I asked Ruben, when are we gonna be ready to release? We care a lot about responsible disclosure and try to make every effort possible to work with the vendors and manufacturers to make sure that fixes are in place. And I knew that Ruben had been working with ICS CERT. I know some of the CERT folks are here today, and we love you guys. We had been working with ICS CERT for months. So you could imagine my horror when I found out only one vendor had even ever responded to us. Everybody else, no matter whether we knocked on the front door, the side door, the back door, nobody was listening. Now, side note, public service announcement, guys, if you work for a vendor, if you work for a manufacturer, and a researcher is knocking on your front door to try to tell you something is wrong and help you fix it, I'm pretty sure that's the good guy. Trust us when we say the bad guys don't knock on the front door. Don't be afraid of the researchers who are trying to help you. I guarantee these guys and girls have big hearts. So, only one vendor had responded, and we were nervous. I mean, at this point, if they didn't understand that Ruben could be hacking the Melanto from Spain, forget all the things that mattered for oil rigs, the military, emergency systems that all relied on these communications. We were terrified, so we decided we were gonna go public with our research. But Ruben spent quite a lot of time packaging up the right report to go public with. Just like the car hacking, it was the impact that mattered and not the technical details, right? So we wrote the report, we made the decision to release, and literally within hours, people were listening. The vendors and manufacturers were calling us, the end users were calling us, people were making an effort to talk to Ruben. And Wednesday of this week, Ruben actually got the chance to fly into Miami and present at a communications and aviations festival of innovation, where the executives actually invited him into a closed-door session so he could present his research, talk about his ideas, and work with them on ways they can roll out new, innovative technology in a more secure fashion. It's a pretty big win considering everything going on with hacking planes today. All right. Now, be patient. This is definitely not a virtue that I possess. Yeah, Jason knows. Patience is not my strongest virtue, but one of the things that I've learned in this industry is that change takes time. We're often steering the Titanic, guys. We can't expect it to happen overnight, and we can't get frustrated at the slow pace. We often forget to celebrate all the little steps, all the little wins that we have along the way, because we're waiting for that one big epic moment. Well, all those little things and all those small steps along the way, they lead to pretty radical change. So back in 2008, before most of us, including me, knew what the smart grid was, we saw these connected meters being put on houses in our neighborhoods, and they scared the bejesus out of us. We just knew that, like the hacker strip guys think I say, something was rotten in Denmark. So we went on eBay. Side note, yes, eBay is your friend for security researchers everywhere. Until one of us starts talking about vulnerabilities in systems, pretty much everything is available on eBay. Once the press catches wind of it, it becomes a little bit harder, but medical devices, ATMs, smart meters, we got our first round on eBay every time. Go poke around a little, you might get inspired by some of the things that you can break. So we picked up a few of these devices off of eBay, and Mike Davis and Jason Larson, two of our principal researchers, went to town hacking them. And boy, did they hack them. These things were vulnerable like nothing we had seen before, and our guys wrote a proof of concept worm that showed how we could shut down a city's power in a matter of minutes. It was pretty scary stuff, and so in an effort to make sure that this proof of concept never became a reality, we all boarded the plane for DC to attend what is still probably one of the most intimidating meetings of my professional career. We stood up in the Department of Homeland Security and we attempted to explain that smart meters were broken, that the worm was going to shut down a city, and yes, you should trust us, we're actually the good guys. And they listened. We left behind a brief that was later read by Obama, and we were invited into discussions to roll out regulations, to discuss how manufacturers should be securing devices, to discuss how rollouts may or may not need to be delayed. People were listening. Change definitely didn't happen overnight, but today the US by far leads the world in smart grid security. Everyone else is playing catch up, and when the meters come into our lab today, our guys have to pull out the big guns, the chemicals, the lasers, the things that are gonna burn you down to the bone without even leaving a mark. They gotta pull out all that stuff to be able to make a really good hack on the system. And if you do that, that means the barrier is higher, which means the likelihood of hack is lower. That's real progress, right? Again, there's still work that needs to be done, but progress is being made. So, Cesar Cerruto, CTO of IOActive Labs, he's one of the guys who's kind of changing the game, changing the way we think and changing the way we approach these things, right? We're hackers. We all think everything needs to be hacked, everything needs to be broken, we've got to show you the vulnerability or you're not going to believe us, right? But Cesar's taking kind of a different, more forward-looking approach. He just created a new initiative called Securing Smart Cities. It's a nonprofit consortium where he brought together researchers from around the world. Kaspersky Labs, Bastille Networks, the Cloud Security Alliance, and Exhibitor are among a few of the early guys taking part. Now here's the key. As you know, we've already proven cars, smart meters, traffic signals, the Internet of Things, the list goes on and on. We have proven that all of this stuff is broken. It's all hackable, it's all vulnerable, everybody knows it, everybody admits it. So why would we have to hack a smart city just to prove that 10 wrongs don't make a right? All we're doing is combining a whole lot of broken technology, rolling it out, and calling it smart. Right? We shouldn't have to take down a small city in order to be able to prove smart cities have vulnerabilities, right? We should be striving to be thought leaders. We should be taking what we've learned over the years, what we know about software, what we know about vulnerabilities, what we know about hacking, and warning people before it's too late, right? We don't need to show that everything has been hacked in order to prove that it can be hacked, right? Security researchers have gotten a big voice. Everybody has proven a whole lot of stuff along the way, right? We don't need to constantly be proving ourselves. So with what Cesar's doing, we're actually taking a much more thought leadership approach. And again, no lives are put in risk, no laws are being broken, right? And they're communicating. They've literally caught the ear of smart city governments around the world, and people are actually coming together in a few months to discuss ways in which we can actually secure the smart cities before things get rolled out. Now, overall, these are just a few stories about a few researchers that I work with. There's a big, ugly world of things we need to secure better and challenges ahead of us, right? There's no limit to what we can do, but if we keep breaking the rules, but it's critical we remember to break only the right rules. Don't harm people, don't break laws, I can't advocate for breaking laws, and have some fun, right? You guys need to think big, break things, enjoy it, but be safe, be responsible, be good people. All right, now, Chris Valasek always tells me I need to be a good showman, and so I'm supposed to, at the end of every presentation, drop the mic. I'm not going to rip it off my dress. Drop the mic and say, I'm out. But I will be available for the rest of the morning for any questions, and I welcome anything that you guys have to say about how we could do a better job. That's it. Thank you.